Oh,
That was a good start.
it's just us. Bear with us. Don't. I think I'm in charge here. Hang on. All right.
A very good evening. Just at that last split second, as we're about to go live, my internet died. So apologies for that. And we are now seemingly correct in where we're going. Welcome to the West Midlands Football Podcast. We're here on a Tuesday night. We'd normally be here on a Sunday, looking back at all of the action from the weekend, but we thought we'd wait 48 hours after the closing of the transfer window to discuss all things West Midlands football from not just the previous weekend, but also how our teams have got on in January. One or two more people may be joining us throughout the hour, but for right now, we'll press on with me, Ben Ellis. So very good evening to you watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Also to Jack Spedding and to Jonathan Wimrish is here as well. Guys, good evening.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a good bit panicky there that split second, but
You're the only one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me and Jack. Oh, he's gone again. There we go. me and Jack were like,
no, I'm here. Seriously,
what's going on?
Yeah, some proper gremlins in the system this evening. So yeah, intermittently we may drop out, but I did all my pre-flight checks and everything was fine. And just at the moment we were about to go, bang, we fell out. But we'll stop all the amateurish stuff now, and yeah, we'll stop all the amateur stuff and we'll press on. As we've got you, Jonathan, on the show, we are going to start with West Bromwich Albion, because not just in terms of the transfer window, but the obvious speculation of the future of Valérien Ismaël. Now, it doesn't happen very often. It probably doesn't happen as often as you'd think, but on Saturday at Millwall, even from an outsider's point of view, of which myself and Jack as Villa fans, you felt it turn nasty. You felt it turn ugly, and it's just is it just a culmination of what you guys have had to put up with watching all season? It finally came to a head at Millwall.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it all bottled up throughout the entire season. We have basically come off the worst week of the season so far, losing 2-0 to both Preston and Millwall. Two teams we really should be beating in this league, to be honest. But yeah, I think a lot of the frustration from the fans has spilled over into the scenes we saw on Saturday, unfortunately, with the flares and the seats getting ripped up. But yeah, it's all down to the football we're having to endure at the moment. I mean, Valérien Ismaël, there's literally no plan B. We go a goal down, and he sticks to like what literally has not been working the entire game. So it's a tough one. I mean, substitutes that he's making are not affecting the game. They're like for like subs. His formation is, for want of a better word, wrong. And like he's literally not playing people in their natural positions. You may blame that to recruitment and the depth of the squad, but I mean we've been relegated from the Premier League, at the start of the season, and we were one of the bookies' favourites to come straight back up, along with Fulham and possibly Bournemouth as well. And we just haven't lived up to the expectations. And it has really frustrated the West Bromwich Albion fans as a result.
Can't hear this, Ben. Sorry.
Audio, Ben.
Oh, I'm having a great night. Anyway, sorry. I was just thinking from the outside, Jack, looking in from a fan's point of view. We heard about flares being thrown on the pitch and seats being ripped up. It was away at Millwall. So was it not just a case of when in Rome?
Well, yes, there is that, I guess. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't think about that. Yeah, but I guess that is it. Yeah, that has happened in the past, hasn't it? I thought it's unusual, West Brom. They have this reputation, don't they, West Bromwich Albion, of sacking managers when it's not going right. They don't usually hang around with this sort of thing. But this time, they seem to be. And I thought he would have been gone after they lost 2-0 at home to Preston, I think it was, last week. And the Millwall result compounded that as well. They don't look like, as Jonathan said, they were one of the favourites to go up. And the squad isn't bad, I don't think, unless Jonathan could tell me otherwise. But I don't think Ismail is having any effect there whatsoever. It just seems to have really turned quite ugly, quite nasty, usually when away fans start, because they're the ones that go to the games thick and thin, and they're the big loyal fans who, you want to listen to, really. And when they start turning nasty and they start turning against the manager, which, I don't know, it might have just been a few drunken idiots in Millwall, or it might have just been a culmination of, this is terrible, we want something different. It would be one thing if it was, West Brom were playing lovely free-flowing football and you could see where the plan was, but I've seen them a couple of times this season. It's just not inspiring. You just don't think, and there is a way of getting out of Championship, and sometimes that is the way, and sometimes it is practical. But as Jonathan says, there's no pragmatism there. There's no plan B, and I think something does need to change pretty sharpish.
I mean, we've talked on here before about what we've seen with West Bromwich Albion this season. Jonathan, you say he hasn't got a plan B. I'm struggling with what plan A is, to be quite honest.
To be honest.
The problem that they've got two problems essentially, and they've given him a 4-year contract. Now, you would assume, given this little break period that they've got now, the reports are that Valerian Ismail is in Germany at the moment because he's gone back to see his family who are still based there. Now, it's only speculation. There's nothing to base this on whatsoever. I don't think I've seen anybody have any kind of inside information, but it's likely, some are saying, that some kind of deal is being thrashed out between himself and the board as some kind of severance, and that by the time by the time West Brom play their next game, that Valerian Ismail will not be in the dugout. If that happens, Jonathan, it's going to have to be that way, isn't it? They can't just sack somebody on a big 4-year contract.
No, absolutely. This 4-year contract that he's signed up to, it's supposed to be a big 4-year project, but I've been speaking to some West Bromwich Albion YouTube vloggers, and they've said that if this keeps up, in 4 years' time, we'll be down in League 2 fighting derbies with Warsaw. So it's really a toxic atmosphere at the Hawthorns at the moment, with the whole, they're not going to sack him because they've got him for 4 years. If they sack him, they've got to pay him money that the club owes him, money which the owner, our transfer window has literally been a couple of strikers, and one of those is already injured. So, and the other one's Andy Carroll. But, with owners like that won't invest in transfers, then what hope have we got for them to actually pay compensation to Valerian Ismail for the remainder of his contract? Basically, as I said, it's a really toxic atmosphere. The fans want Valerian Ismail out. Certain players are not happy with the way he's been playing. Sam Johnston as well. We don't know what's going on with him at the moment. Nothing happened in the transfer window, so he's obviously staying at the Albion, but there's an internal issue which he's been thrown around all week last week. That's why he didn't play in the Preston or Millwall games. But yeah, it's really frustrating for the Baggies fans at the moment, because we're literally hearing nothing whatsoever, apart from Valerian Ismail visiting his family in Germany. But some of us are saying, well, we were supposed to play Bournemouth this weekend, but Bournemouth are busy in the FA Cup, so we've got a week off. So he's using the time to go visit his family. So we're not holding out too much hope that he is actually going to be sacked this week, to be honest.
Bournemouth are also very busy on transfer deadline day. They're doing the kind of deals that if you harbour realistic ambitions and realistically only second place is available now because Fulham look like they're going over the horizon back to the Premier League. That there's only really second place in terms of automatic places. We'll come on to that in just a moment. One piece of circumstantial evidence to the contrary that Valérien Ismaël is being sacked, in that he probably isn't going anywhere because, quite surprisingly, Robert Snodgrass has left the club by mutual consent. Had his contract terminated. He's one of the names that had reportedly fallen out with Valérien Ismaël. We mentioned the Sam Johnston issue. The player leaves might indicate the manager stays.
Yeah, absolutely. Touched on this last night in the Deadline Day podcast. Basically, Snodgrass has been a big advocate against Valérien's tactics, Valérien's management style, and now his contract has been terminated by mutual consent, meaning, the club have essentially taken Valérien's side in that respect. So, yeah, that's really how us fans feel that has gone. It has gone with the way of Valérien Ismaël, meaning, like I said, we're not holding out much hope of him actually getting sacked anytime soon.
And Jack, I mean, just on the point of that, again, we're on the outside looking in, but we know about having Robert Snodgrass in your team. If you're looking to push for promotion, that's a player you want to be hanging on to if you've got realistic ambitions of going up.
It is. He is 35 now, I guess. That is one thing you could say about him. I was amazed when a couple of things I was amazed by. When Jonathan said one of our two new strikers is injured, and it wasn't Andy Carroll. That really surprised me. And the other one was when I saw this morning that statement that West Brom tweeted of the club has parted ways with, and I just assumed it would be Valérien Ismaël, and it wasn't. It was Robert Snodgrass. So, it hasn't been great there. I do think, in terms of the money side of things, I don't know how. I was going to ask Jonathan about Sam Johnston as well, actually, because I know he hadn't played in the past couple of games, which, again, we know all about how he helps teams nearly get promoted as well. But yeah, I was looking at the table there, and it is salvageable. They're fifth, West Brom. Bournemouth are slipping. Blackburn, eventually they're due a dip. This is very much not season over at all. So you'd think that if they do eventually get the right man in, which I do think will be sooner rather than later. I know we've got these little things of, maybe he won't, maybe he will. I mean, Everton took sides with Rafa Benitez over Luca Dean, and then Rafa went a week later. So that's the kind of precedent you could have with that, really. Football is a fickle thing. I looked at some of the comments on that Snodgrass release today on that tweet, and it wasn't particularly positive from West Brom fans. I don't think many were particularly sorry to see him go. Like I say, he's 35 now, so good luck to him. But I think West Brom have got bigger problems at the minute, and I don't think he was. I don't think he was top of the list.
At the moment, the problem with West Bromwich Albion is, comparing ourselves to Bournemouth, who have identified that they're dropping points, have identified that they're slipping down the table, and have essentially made moves towards that by signing no less than 5 players yesterday. Albion, no such thing. We haven't identified the problems. The board seems to think everything is fine. And, when your own fans are going to away games and ripping up seats and throwing flares, then obviously not everything is fine. So I think that's comparing us with Bournemouth. Bournemouth have identified their problems, and unfortunately, Albion, we haven't.
Look at the squad, and you can reel off a list of names. Sort of Sam Johnston, Matt Phillips, and Livermore, and it's an endless list. They were at West Brom 2 relegations ago from the Premier League. you go down, come up again, come down, come up again, and
Yeah.
it looks like it's
Carl
it's
Bartley
kind of
as well.
Carl Bartley.
Yeah.
Another good example there. So they've not really shown any desire from a boardroom perspective of freshening it up. Not to the extent where, I mean, a lot of these players, Darren Moore had them in his brief spell in charge, and they only just missed out on getting to the playoff final by one kick of the ball. I can't remember who that was against, but we'll move on.
I wonder who that was.
Just look at the Premier League table, mate. You'll find you'll be able to figure out who it is. Right. But do you know what I'm saying? That they haven't. I don't see any youngsters coming through. I don't. There aren't any. There's Conor Gallagher when he had him on loan a bit. And he's gone on and done sort of good things in the Premier League. But the makeup of the squad, it's just stale.
Yeah. I mean, our under 23s are beating the likes of Arsenal's under 23s at the moment. And, us as fans are looking to the under 23 squad and we're like, why isn't the first team A, playing like that, or B, including them in the first team matches? The only time we actually had any true academy players is when, we were hit with multiple COVID cases against Reading. The EFL said, no, you're playing. So we ended up with David Button on the bench plus all the academy players. And even then, we only made one substitution all game. And that was, who was it now? It was Reece Clary, who has been on phenomenal form for the under 23s. So we're having a good academy. And the problem is we're just not utilising the academy. Yesterday, one or two academy players went out on loan when we really could be doing with them at the club, to be honest, helping us get a promotion instead of, like, no disrespect to them, helping the likes of Cheltenham and who was the other one? I forgot the other one, but I know one of our guys went to Cheltenham on loan. So no disrespect to Cheltenham, but we could have done with that guy, that kid, at the club right now, to be honest.
I think there's something that's very telling that happened at the weekend that gives an insight into the situation at West Bromwich Albion. In that Jordan Hugill scored for Cardiff, who are having a wretched season.
Yeah, we absolutely love that.
I'm sure in a 2-1 victory against Nottingham Forest, and so he was one of the players that is coming for a lot of criticism from the West Brom fans. I didn't watch the Cardiff game. I don't know how that matched up or anything like that. I don't know what kind of goal it was or the way Cardiff played or anything anything like that at all. But Jordan Hugill was one of the few that, and there was more than one, that fans were targeting as kind of not being good enough to play for West Bromwich Albion. But he goes and scores in a 2-1 win for Cardiff, which I found interesting. There's a lot as well, Jonathan. There's players in all the positions in midfield and what have you. They're all kind of much of a muchness. There isn't anybody that kind of stands out or could do something a little bit different. Or bit further forward, if you get Dean Garner on a good day, I mean that's another story as well. And yes, they've been unfortunate with DK with his injury. They kind of £7 million for West Brom in the Championship's a lot of money, and for that to have worked out the way it has is kind of unfortunate, and you never know with Andy Carroll what you're gonna get there, but they've got to start getting the balls into the box if they're going to use Andy Carroll. But a lot of it is all sort of much of a muchness. I don't see any variety amongst the players, particularly in midfield.
No, absolutely. I mean, some of the stats in recent games, we basically you can compare them to a game of FIFA 22. Basically, we've had like 29 shots, and only 2 of them have been on target with no goals. And Preston have 3 shots on target and score with 2 of them. So it's like it's not like we're not creating chances, but we're just not putting them away when we really need to. Like I said, Preston is a team we really should be beating. Millwall is a team we really should be beating, but we've just not got that killer edge in the opposition box, or that one moment of magic to turn a game around. It's just not there. And I look at the squad, and I see the midfield with Livermore, Malumbi, Taylor Gardner-Hickman is coming up through the ranks. Anyway, he's like the exception to the academy rule, to be honest. He has been included in the first team for quite a few games. And Alex Moat as well. And I just don't see any cutting edge at the moment. Like you said, Dean Garner, on a good day, he's phenomenal. Callum Robinson, he's been guilty of missing a few sitters, but he has scored some great goals recently, like against Peterborough, when we actually did turn that one around. But yeah, it's I just don't see any cutting edge from Albion at the moment. Maybe Andy Carroll, because we're good at crossing the ball and the long throws from Darnell Furlong and Connor Townsend. We can get the balls in the box to Andy Carroll. He's a big striker. And yeah, providing he doesn't get injured, fingers crossed, maybe he can be the one to start banging the goals in, to be honest.
I've had a message from Debbie or Deb on Facebook. If Val is sacked, does Mozza go as well? I'm assuming she means James Morrison.
James Morrison, yeah.
With that, I mean, he's been one that's been kind of linked as taking over along with Chris Brunt for the remainder of the season, should that happen. Do you see that working?
Well, to be honest, it's the same situation that Everton had when Rafa Benitez was sacked, because they had Duncan Ferguson in temporary charge of them before we now know Frank Lampard is managing Everton. Basically, Duncan Ferguson at Everton, club legend. And, of course, James Morrison, Chris Brunt. We've had, phenomenal games with those over the years. And yeah, absolutely. Club legends like Chris Brunt, James Morrison know the club well, know how the fans, what the fans are like, because they've literally been there through Premier League years, our best Premier League years. And yeah, I say give it to Morrison and Brunt for the moment, but it's really going to be the same situation as what Duncan Ferguson had recently with Everton.
Just broadening this out now, Jack, because I heard a lot of West Brom fans say at the weekend, I'm not going to do an Albion fan accent, but because that would be insulting, but it's the worst football I've ever seen under Valérien Ismaël. It's absolutely terrible. A lot of people have very short memories when it comes to this kind of thing. But from a fan's point of view, if you want to take it from a Villa fan's point of view, what's the worst football you've ever seen supporting your team?
Now we are talking. I'd say, just quickly on that West Brom thing, it can't have been a surprise to people that Valérien Ismaël plays like this, because if you saw Barnsley play at all last season, they were incredibly direct and they were incredibly, difficult to beat. And, that might work if you've got an underdog mentality. But when you are one of the top three teams in the league, really, in terms of club size and on paper, you shouldn't have that, mentality of let's just kick it long to the big lad up front. And then he did that thing of swapping three strikers up front last season, didn't he, at half time every game, which seemed to work. But obviously, you can't do that as much anymore. Worst football I've seen. Capello's England wasn't great at the World Cup. That wasn't good. But in terms of Villa, I mean, it would have to be that season when we ended up with Eric Black in charge and everyone just sort of gave up. And then, we lost like 14 out of 15 games or whatever it was. The Lambert years weren't great. They were quite dull. And obviously, just let's pretend that Alex McLeish never existed, I guess.
Yeah, that one don't count. We don't include that one. That was that's just erase from memory.
Well, obviously, years for Villa, I think that would be the yeah.
Thanks to Deb for getting back in touch. Give it to Brunty and Mozza. They will kill it. And her 9-year-old grandson plays better than the donkeys they have at West Bromwich Albion, is what she says. But that's an interesting point, though, isn't it, Jonathan? We'll finish on West Brom with this now. Talk about the manager all you want, but if the players are not doing the business, I mean, I heard accusations that they were bottling it on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I heard those as well. It was like this and the Preston game were literally the worst performances that we've ever seen from a West Bromwich Albion squad. It's almost like they quote unquote down tools because I don't know what's happening on the training ground, but maybe there's something that they don't agree with Valerian's management style, with his tactics. It might actually go deeper than the whole Snodgrass and Johnston situations. But yeah, there's a lot of big influencers within the West Bromwich Albion team. You've got experienced people like Livermore and Bartley that are huge influencers on the younger players, like Furlong and Moat and everyone like that. But yeah, it's. I mean, I was at the Preston game last week. And literally, when they scored the second goal, I mean, I'm sure about 75% of the Hawthorns just emptied. We had enough. We had absolutely had enough. I mean, I only stayed there to finish my match vlog. Otherwise, I'd have been out at the stadium as well. But yeah, it's like literally the worst football that we'd ever seen. And yes, some of that does have to fall not just on Valerian Ismail, but the players as well. They've got to do better. I mean, we've got this squad now until the end of the season. Transfers are done now, and we've just got to, if we've got any hope of salvaging this season, they've got to play better, to be honest.
And I think that's quite interesting as well to hear West Brom fans say it's the worst football they've ever seen, and the Tony Pulis era is still fresh in the memory as well. I think what we're actually saying, I think, Jack, you made a good point. You made a good point about Valerian Ismail with Barnsley and the underdog mentality. Pulis had that in the Premier League, fighting to stay in it, and did it for as long as he could. Maybe if Pulis was in charge of this team now in the Championship, you probably would still be seeing the same kind of outcome because of expectations. But I think that's a good place to leave that for now. And thanks to Deb for all of her comments as well. You can comment too. Facebook, there's Twitter as well. And we're streaming on YouTube, the West Midlands Football Podcast. We're normally here on a Sunday, but we've left it till Tuesday now that the transfer window has indeed closed. And we're staying in the Championship. And what we're going to do, a big thing with Birmingham City, because 2 games ago, prior to a game against Peterborough at St Andrews, and I think it was Peterborough, I might be wrong there actually, but there was a big march, a protest from St Martin's Church in Digworth all the way up to St Andrews. That's a good half-hour walk. I've done it a couple of times.
I've done that as an away.
So it's not. Yeah, it's not. You go uphill as well. As well. So it's not. It's not like that's an easy walk for a lot of people. So Blues fans obviously had a very strong feelings about the lack of communication that they felt that they've been getting from the Chinese owners at Birmingham City. And lo and behold, one of them spoke up, and we've talked about this on a previous podcast, and we'll just go over this now because we had different guests on at the time. But they said that in Chinese culture, and Happy New Year, Chinese New Year as well, because it is that today. In Chinese culture, we don't say, we do, and we keep quiet about it. And I'm like, okay, well, there's 2 things to say about that from the outside looking in, Jack, in that they weren't doing anything, so they didn't have anything to say, first of all, which is what I got the Blues fans riled. But I also question that in terms of a cultural aspect, because the last owner we had, the Chinese fella, he said a hell of a lot and did nothing. So, he was all mouth and no trousers. So, and that could have ended up very badly indeed. And the sliding doors moment in the direction that a club was going in. But this director spoke out. He said, we're listening to what the fans, we're going to have more communication. they have started sharing images of why sections of St Andrews are not. It's not possible for fans to attend, which they've been very quiet before. Blues fans feel a bit better about this. It kind of lifted the mood, and they feel a bit better now. They've had two 2-2 draws. One where they were 2-0 down, coming from behind to snatch a point from playing appallingly against Peterborough, to the absolute opposite on Sunday, a game which I watched on the telly and thoroughly enjoyed. 2-0 up, absolutely cruising, and with 5 minutes to go, conceded 2 late goals. And it's one of those ones where you feel like you've lost the game as opposed to even getting something from it. Controversial equaliser, offside in the build-up, and an overhead kick, which some Blues fans thought that it was dangerous play. But just this is going to sound wrong, and I apologise. Blues fans are quite simple folk, and I don't mean that in a I realise the words I'm using, right? And I don't mean it in that way, but all they wanted was a bit of clarity and a bit of communication and the knowledge that the owners of the club are actually there and are willing to kind of communicate with them. And okay, it's still not perfect, but at least you've spoken to us, and then they can let Lee Bowyer get on with what he's trying to do. And the 2 performances since the protest and since the directors came and gave the interview on local radio, Jack, performances have improved.
They're getting there, absolutely. They should have seen Derby on like this wave. They really should have seen that game now. But they have improved. I think also, as football fans, we just want clarity on things. We want consistency. If want to know what they're doing. But the problem with Birmingham is, well, there's lots of problems with Birmingham. They're a mess. Like, no one really knows who owns them. Like, who is the one person that is in charge of Birmingham City? The ground's falling apart. They're not spending any money. I just feel a bit bad for Lee Bowyer, who clearly is a really good manager. He did wonderful things with Charlton, but he just seems to just take these clubs on that are just absolute messes. I'd like Lee Bowyer just to get either Birmingham sort themselves out or Lee Bowyer go on and get like a decent job where the club is run quite smoothly. They are doing a bit, those performances were better. I think they should be okay in the Championship, in terms of staying up. But obviously, eventually, they want more than that, don't they? And this ground thing does need sorting because, quite frankly, it looks amateurish when you're watching it on highlights packages or, anything like, or just watching it live. You could see the bottom tiers just covered in advertising. It just looks really naff. They need to sort that ASAP. And, I completely get it. They should be marching. They should be protesting. It's good for them, quite frankly. And if this sort of clarity comes up from it and their team starts playing better, then that's a win for them, I think.
Absolutely. What they want to do, Jonathan, is get. I think they're 13 points clear of the bottom 3 now, and they're always under the EFL's microscope. They're one of the ones that the EFL target. There's a lot of clubs under investigation with the EFL at the moment. We know about Derby, we know, and Middlesbrough have come to light recently as well. So it wouldn't be beyond the EFL to target Birmingham City for something. So the idea is to get enough points on the board quickly that if the EFL decide we'll take 9 or 12 off you, that you'll still be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Derby and Reading have already suffered that fate this season already. So, yeah, it doesn't exactly help that you're 2-0 up and you end up drawing a game 2-2. Yes, it does feel like a loss. Of course, not ruling out Derby and the Wayne Rooney factor for them. They're doing absolutely phenomenal since the points deduction. And yeah, but they need to start getting results. They've signed Bakuna from Rangers and Taylor on loan from Nottingham Forest, and it was Taylor who actually scored one of Birmingham's goals against Derby. To be honest, it was a tame shot which trickled past the keeper. Not sure how that happened, but Birmingham fans won't care about that. But yeah, it's like you said, it's the whole financial fair play and administration and everything like that. We've heard it for other teams all season long, especially with like Derby and Reading. So yeah, I mean that they need to start getting the results in to accumulate the points, so that if the worst does happen, then it doesn't affect their entire season, like it unfortunately it did with who was it? Sheffield Wednesday, I believe, last season or the season before. They got relegated, or was it Wigan? I'm not sure, but they ended up getting relegated due to a points deduction, and Birmingham do not want that.
Absolutely not. I think Bakuna's a good signing in the Championship. I think he'll do well. You mentioned Taylor. It depends which side of the fence you are with that. I thought he took that goal really well.
Yeah.
With a minimum of effort. Scott Hogan is scoring goals again, which is always a good thing. Another piece of news as well. One of the ongoing sagas, we mentioned it with Valerian Ismail and Sam Johnston being each other's throats, but there was always a feeling that Lee Bowyer and Harley Dean were never getting along, and Harley Dean has now left the club, and Troy Deeney now has the club captaincy, Jack.
Yes, every Villa fan's favourite man. Absolutely.
Oh, he's cracking
I think again the Dean thing with Bowyer, that they never really did get on, did they? But now that's been sorted. Hopefully they can move on from that. And Troy Deeney, we know what he's all about, don't we? He's a good, he's a good player, and certainly the Championship. And hopefully he can take them forward.
Yeah, you did that. You're almost like a ventriloquist there.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was brilliant. That was.
I spoke about it with my lips and with a different accent.
Yeah, that was incredible. And for my next trick, so generally more positive than it was, say, sort of 3 weeks to a month ago. Need to obviously get towards the end of the season now. Because it really was looking, the turn of the year just after Christmas, it really was looking dodgy. You didn't know where the kind of the next point was going to come from. Hogan starts scoring goals. You've always got Dean. You've always got Jukovic. I think Neil Etheridge is a good goalkeeper in the Championship, and so there should be. I'm not saying a promotion push or anything like that, or going for but there should be a solid Championship side there that Lee Bowyer should be able to put out. And if they can just sort the off-field problems out, then what they haven't got at the moment is your only real assets like they had before with Jude Bellingham. I mean, that's what they need to they need to come to terms with. It's the West. Yeah. I mean, I don't know his father, but I've commentated on his father at non-league level.
Oh, wow.
Mark Bellingham. I mean, he's got over 700 career goals, even at non-league level. I mean, that's pretty something. To be honest, doing the local non-league scene around sort of Birmingham and Sutton Coldfield and what have you. So. He's a good lad. Is Mark Bellingham? I'm sure he's very proud of what his boys have achieved. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast here on your local TV channel, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm Ben Ellis. I've had better nights in terms of how I've controlled things, but we are pushing on. And we're moving into the Premier League now. How boring was transfer deadline day? Particularly in the Premier League, obviously it's Newcastle who get all the attention at the moment because they've got all the money. We haven't got Gav with us this week, Jack, but one or two disgruntled Wolves fans out there with the lack of activity.
Yes, I have seen this. Yeah, they're not happy. I don't know why. Very well in the Premier League at the minute, but they could do with maybe a bit more strength. They've now let Traore go, who, to be honest, I've never rated. I must admit, I don't see the big hype about Traore, apart from him being incredibly fast. But they could have done with a bit more depth, especially they didn't replace Traore, I don't think, unless someone can correct me on that. And I can see why, because I think they're onto something, Wolves, at the minute. I think they're playing really good stuff. They're currently 8th in the Premier League. And you do think there is a couple of spaces open in the Europa League this year. And you do think with a couple more additions, they could have really been onto something. But as I say, they've not done that. They've not even looked close to doing that by the sounds of it. They haven't, as far as I was aware, they weren't particularly linked with anybody. So yeah, I can see why they're frustrated, but in the grander scheme of things, I think they will be okay. I think a top half finish is what they should be aiming for. And as I say, a couple more people, a bit more strength and depth in midfield as well, might have gone a bit toward that as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're having a very good solid season under sort of Bruno Lage. They don't score too many, but they definitely don't concede many either. Jonathan, I mean, we talk about the lack of activity from Wolves, but in and amongst the teams they're battling with for a European place, and there's been talk about maybe getting into the running for top 4 with some of the results that they've been getting. So Wolves fans will say, we haven't done a lot in the transfer window. We needed to push on. West Ham fans could say that in this window. Tottenham fans could say it. Man United fans could say it. All those teams that are there or there about us for pushing for that. So in terms of the race that Wolves are in, they haven't lost any ground in terms of personnel, have they?
No, not really. I mean, I can say to Jack that Wolves straight up came out and said they're not replacing Adama Traore. We touched on this on the Deadline Day podcast last night. We have no idea how, with all their financial difficulties, Barcelona have managed to seal the deal there, and also with Aubameyang as well. With all of the news about Barcelona's finances, how they've managed to get Traore and Aubameyang is beyond us. But yeah, it's literally, like you said, there wasn't much action going on with those kind of clubs. It was more players leaving the club than players joining. Obviously, they had a few exceptions with Chiquinho from Estoril, and they've also signed Kouabi from Grasshopper Zurich, but he's gone back on loan to Zurich, so that doesn't really help Wolves at all, which I'm loving as a Baggies fan, to be honest. But it's like you said, a top half finish when they could have been breaking, top Europa, even Champions League places. But yeah, like you said, West Ham haven't done much. Again, Manchester United have had more outs than ins, and yeah. So I think in that particular part of the table, that they haven't really been at a major disadvantage, but I reckon the Adama Traore transfer will hurt them in the long term, to be honest.
I'd be worried if I was a West Ham fan right now, because I said I was on the Deadline Day podcast in August, and I said West Ham will rue not having done enough in the summer transfer window. They've done nothing in the January transfer window as well. Jack, we know. I mean, we're trying to keep this as local as we can from a local perspective, but we know when you're on multiple fronts with the Premier League and the Europa League. Was it called the Europa League back then? But we think back to the Martin O'Neill days when we got to March and we really did hit the wall when we didn't have the strength and depth. I think 1 to 11, everybody fully fit with a manager like David Moyes, West Ham are a match for anybody. But cliches because they're true. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And by about March, April time, West Ham are going to rue not having done more in the transfer window. How West Ham didn't manage to sign Jesse Lingard permanently in the summer, I still do not understand.
Yeah. I can see why United didn't want to let him go on loan this January as well, just quickly, because, they are now a director. So that's why that would happen. But you do worry if Antonio gets injured. Like you say, back in the O'Neill days, if we had one or two wingers or central midfielders go down. That was really it. It was down to Mustafa Salifu, wasn't it? And God bless him, he wasn't quite up to standard. And again, this could be a thing with Wolves. Neves goes down or Jimenez goes down. That's the obvious one, isn't it? I know they've just signed. I forgot his name's left my mind now, but they've signed him on a permanent deal, and he looks a really good player. Actually, I've completely forgotten my name. What's his name? That's very poor.
No, the Korean lad.
Yeah, what's his name?
Hwang Hee-chan.
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't want to sound. Yeah, I forgot. Anyway, but yeah, so he looks a good player. But like you say, a couple of injuries, and this sort of happens. Nuno did like a very, very small squad at Wolves, and then you sort of thought once he would leave, maybe that would change a little bit, but apparently not. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do in the summer. You would think there's a couple of players getting on a bit in that squad now as well, so you would think that they would need refreshing eventually as well.
Well, by the time we get to the summer, Wolves will be released from the FFP restrictions that they've been under since they went quite deep in the Europa League a couple of seasons ago. So, reading some fan blogs with Wolves, that they think they'll get back to spending the kind of money that they were spending when the Fosun Group first came in. Moving across to Villa Park, and we cannot be accused of being biased on this program. There are two Villa fans on here, but we didn't go straight in talking about our team. We put others first, but last but not least, the transfer business in this window for Aston Villa. Jack, I saw on Twitter and Facebook and blogs yesterday some disgruntled so-called Villa fans saying that this has been a really poor window for Villa because of the lack of activity on transfer deadline day.
It's real spoilt kid at Christmas vibes, isn't it? I also saw this because, the temerity not to sign a holding midfielder after we've already signed 5 players. And like you say, not many teams have signed any, quite a lot of teams haven't signed any players, especially the teams that will sort of be competing with for a top half finish. I'm sure Wolves fans will be really crying a river that Villa didn't sign a holding midfielder, but did sign, 5 players, 2 of them who will be starting every week in Coutinho and Digne, and then some good backup in Callum Chambers and Robin Olsen as well. And also Kerr Smith, who is a little Football Manager legend for me, just a little personal note there, but little 18-year-old from Dundee United who looks apparently is a terrific looking prospect. So that's exciting. A few outs, but the whole midfielder thing is a shame because I think Douglas Luiz recently came out of an interview and said he actually prefers being a number 8 and a bit more advanced in midfield. And it's a real shame that Marvelous Nakamba injury happened as well because he was just coming into his own. He was, coming under Gerrard, doing really well, and then he got that quite bad injury. And it's a real shame that's happened. So I can sort of see why Villa fans are upset, but at the same time, you've got to wait for, you can't just buy people for the sake of it. You don't want to buy Yves Bissouma for £50 million, as was the talk. That is just ridiculous. You don't want to be doing that. You've got to think. I always think back to Liverpool for ages just wanted Virgil van Dijk. And they didn't want anyone else apart from Virgil van Dijk. And they waited and they waited and they waited. And everybody went, just sign somebody, anybody. But they waited and eventually they got their man. And he turned out to be the correct man. And that's what you need to do in the transfer market. Wait until the right person comes up. And I think that's what we're doing. Gerrard's got his heart set on getting a holding midfielder, presumably in the summer. And we'll see who that will be. I don't think we'll pay £50 million for the who knows?
I don't think they will either. What thing I would say as well, you look at the track record of the current ownership in the last couple of transfer windows, is that signings appear out of the blue. You think of Danny Ings and you think of Callum Chambers as well. And you think, wow, nobody saw that coming. I didn't see any paper talk, any serious paper talk linking Villa with him. So that tells me that doesn't mean nothing was happening yesterday. They just didn't have anything to announce. And if they could have got somebody in, they would have. Like you said about Steven Gerrard, he's only going to bring in players that he feels that are going to improve what is already there. What I like at the moment that we're seeing with Steven Gerrard is that you know, we know the setup at Villa. So we've got the owners, we've got a chief executive, we've got a sporting director, and it filters down to a head coach role, which Steven Gerrard is and Dean Smith was before. But Steven Gerrard is having a massive say in transfers, and we've seen that this month.
Yes, absolutely. You know, you can, especially Digne. You know, the talk was that he was not keen on Matt Targett, and he wants 2 players in each position. So he signed, quite frankly, an improvement on Matt Targett. The Targett one's a bit weird. It's a shame that he's gone, because he was brilliant last season. He was our Player of the Year, which I completely forgot about. But he's not been that player this season. You know, now that he's not got Grealish ahead of him. So Digne's come in, and, you know, Gerrard wants people to fight for their place. And if he doesn't want to fight for his place, if he'd rather start every week for Newcastle, then that's his choice, and that's absolutely fair enough. So shame to see him go, because, as I say, Gerrard likes high fullbacks, you know, and now that he's got Digne and Cash, he's got 2 attack-minded fullbacks. And like you say, without that cover and holding midfield, maybe that could be a problem, but it's exciting, that's for sure. It's a lot more exciting than, you know, previous years.
No doubt about that. And obviously with Coutinho coming in, and we mentioned this on the pod last week, Jonathan, that, you know, the logical thing to maybe think was, you're bringing in Philippe Coutinho when you've got Buendia, and Buendia could be sitting there thinking, well, hang on, I was supposed to be the guy brought in to replace the superstar that's just left. And all of a sudden, just because there's a new manager in, he wants to bring one of his mates in from when he played for Liverpool. Where does that leave me? Not a bit of it. Buendia's had his 2 best games with Villa playing with Philippe Coutinho, and they really have started to link up well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the important thing when it comes to new signings, you know, how well they can gel with existing members of the squad. But yeah, Villa fans complaining that it's been a bad transfer window when you, like you said, you've got Diagne and Coutinho and Chambers as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, that, from an outsider's perspective, because it's like, those 3 players alone, you know, would make us pleased with an Albion transfer if we could somehow have signed those 3. But yeah, I mean, the yesterday was mainly about like moving people on and, you know, sending the young guys out on loan. But yeah, I mean, it's literally like you said, it's all about getting the chemistry sorted out very early. Otherwise, you know, if there's no chemistry within the team with new signings, it could end up being for example, Fernando Torres at Chelsea. So yeah, it's really good that the Villa squad has like gelled existing players and new players alike.
Jack, after the Everton game, Steven Gerrard was asked about this break coming up, and that, you know, you're getting a bit of momentum. Surely you want to keep playing. But Gerrard, to his credit, said, "Well, no, I'm quite happy that we've got this time. 1 or 2 are going to go on little breaks or what have you, but he's going to have a lot of quality time with the squad at Bodymore Heath, because he's still getting to know a lot of them. He's only been in since kind of November." And you listen to him say that, and you think, okay, he knows what he's getting from the players he's bringing in because he's brought them in. He's got a fair idea about the players that are coming through the academy, because, you know, we're seeing the like of Jacob Ramsey getting regular starts and starting to do very well. I'd like to think he spent this time making his mind up on the established players of Dean Smith's reign, who are in and amongst the squad, and you know, it might be controversial, but he might well decide John McGinn, Tyrone Mings, Douglas Luiz, Nakamura's injured, of course, but we know El Ghazi's been shipped out on loan. We know Target's now been shipped out on loan. You know, you could look at Matt Cash and think I could still improve the fullback area there. I think he's looking to assess that core of established players as to whether or not he wants to stick with them. He's going to bring his own people in. The academy is second to none. We all know that. It's that core that he wants to get to know and see if they're his kind of players moving forward.
I think he has a set idea of what his best. To be honest, I think we have released 13 players on loan this month. Some of them definitely do have futures at Villa. Some of them definitely don't. The likes of Keenan Davis, Anwar El Ghazi, Matt Target. I believe Trezeguet is going to go to Turkey in the next couple of days as well. So you would think those players Gerrard doesn't fancy. They're not really young enough to improve much more. So they've been shipped out, and he's been ruthless in that. And apparently there's talk that Matt Cash might be off in the summer to Atletico Madrid as well. I read that somewhere. And I think he probably does feel like he can. I think Matt Cash does need to produce more, to be honest with you. He's not had an assist in about a year now. And he's a really, really good player. So he should be probably providing a bit more. And I think he does have an idea of what that core is. I think he's a big fan of Ollie Watkins. He's mentioned that several times. He loves John McGinn and he loves Emi Martinez. So you would say those three are pretty safe and they are going to be fine. The rest of them, like you say, you'd think maybe Ezri Konsa, but Tyrone Mings, he's a scapegoat. People do like having a go at him because he appears quite lapsadaisical. He chews gum. He takes risks sometimes. I love Tyrone Mings. I think he's brilliant. So I wouldn't replace him anytime soon. I don't think Gerrard will. I think he understands the squad. He's getting there. Like you say, he's not been there that long, but he can't wait. You don't want to wish time away, but I think he'll be quite excited for this season to end and his squad to have a proper pre-season so he can get up to the fitness levels that he wants them to have and then sign hopefully some more exciting players in the summer.
Yeah, and it just got over a week now until the next game back in action at home against Leeds. We'll have more of a preview on that this Sunday when we are back. Just found it interesting over the weekend, Jack, that I was looking at the starting 11 from the Carabao Cup final 2 seasons ago. I mean, less than 2 years ago, I was there, and even though we gave it our all on the day, wasn't quite good enough against a great side, but we left the field with our kind of heads held high. It's chalk and cheese now.
Yeah,
the lineup there. You look at Bjorn Engels was in that starting lineup. There was Samatta. Even Jack Grealish to a certain, El Mohammadi. The list is endless, and you think that's quite a change, isn't it?
They are ruthless, these people, including Gerrard. They want domination. They want Villa to clean up all the Midlands talent for a start. That's one thing Christian Perzo has been very keen on. He thinks anybody north of Watford who's a youngster should be cleaned up by Villa's youth system, and that does seem to be showing in some of the young players that are going through. And the turnover of the squad is, I think it's a good thing, to be honest, because I think we need to be looking at players for the next level. I don't think people like Samatta and Engels, they're fine, but we're not going to get you into European football, which is what these owners want eventually. So I think, you've got to make some tough decisions and, more power to them. I trust them completely, to be honest.
I can't disagree with that at all. And I think that is a good place with which to leave it on this Tuesday evening. It's been the West Midlands Football Podcast. We are back Sunday at 8 o'clock. Looking at the weekend's action, I'm not sure what's happening, to be honest. Villa don't play till Tuesday. I think West Brom plays Sheffield United on Tuesday. Jonathan, I think. That's right, isn't it?
There is FA Cup weekend this weekend.
Wolves are in action then. So, okay. So I'm sure we'll have a reaction to all of that. And if nothing else, we'll do a preview of the midweek games that are up and coming. At Ben Ellis 1982 is my Twitter, at J_Speds, and at Crazy Shadow 303. I love that Twitter handle, Jonathan. I don't mind telling you. This has been the West Midlands Football Podcast. We will talk to you next week, or Sunday, in fact. Have yourself a fantastic evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.